Okay, so I'm going to show you a short video on how to draw a line of best fit for a scatter plot and write an equation to describe the relationship of the variables in the scatter plot. So this scatter plot is about ice cream sales, and it's showing us the temperature outside and how much money an ice cream truck makes in sales on a given day. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a line of best fit that comes as close as possible to touching all the points. So if I have this as my graph, I've got a line of best fit here. I'm going to show you how I get that. So you want your line of best fit to go through the points, coming as close as possible to touching all of them, and sort of following the general trend of the line. So for example, if I draw kind of a fat line through these, okay, my line of best fit should be somewhere in here. So it wouldn't make sense to make it up here or down here. Neither of those really is going to work. It wouldn't make sense for it to go like this, because while it is touching 4 points or 5 points, it's not really following the general steepness of these points. This is too shallow. Well, if I did this, that's too steep. So I'm going to look at these points and try to draw a line that kind of goes through the middle of them. Okay, so maybe something like this. Maybe make a little adjustment here. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So there's your line of best fit. Okay, so the next step is to pick 2 points on the line. Now, what a lot of kids think is, oh, I've got to look at these points here and pick 2 of them that are on this line, so like this one or this one, but you don't have to. You can just make points up as long as they're on the line. I'll show you an example. So let's say I picked this one right here, okay? That could be a point I could pick. So I'm basically just making a point on the line, and then I'm going to be able to use that to find an equation. And then another point, let's say I pick this one right here. Okay, so there's my 2 points on the line. I mean, it's fine. You could have picked this one here or that one there. It doesn't really matter too much. The thing to remember about scatter plots is it's a bit of an estimate, and everyone's answers are going to be a little bit different, but they should all be fairly close to each other. So that's how you pick 2 points from the line. Okay, so step 3 is to create a table from those points, or use the rise and run and the location of the y-intercept. And you'll use that to write your equation. So here's my first point, 14, and I would call that about 275. So the temp is 14, and then this ice cream sales is $275. This is 20, temperature is 20, and then the sales is $450. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to find the slope. The x difference here from 275 to 450, that's a difference of 175, and from 14 to 20 is a difference of 6. So I'll take 175 divided by 6. We'll go ahead and use a calculator to do that. So 175 divided by 6 gives me 29.16666 repeating. Remember, scatter plots are a bit of an estimation, so I'm going to say it's about 29. Okay? Now I'm going to use this, the slope, to find the y-intercept. I'll go ahead and take this pair here and do 14 times it by 29. All right. 14 times it by 29, and that's going to give me 406. Oops. And I'm trying to get to 275. So if I'm going from 406 to 275, I must be subtracting. And I'll go ahead and subtract these two numbers, 406 minus 275. I must be subtracting 131 from 406. So negative 131 is my y-intercept. So we'll say sales equals 29t minus 131. Now that's my equation. So some of you might think, well, let me go ahead and talk about rise and run. So I could have also just said, okay, I'm going to find the rise and run here and use that. So one misconception is you say, oh, the run's 3, 1, 2, 3. But it's not, because each of these blocks isn't worth 1, they're worth 2. If I go from 14 to 20, that's 6. And you might say, oh, this is just 1.5. But it's not, because each of these blocks, oh, sorry, I'm actually right here. I was a little sloppy with my drawing. So from here to here, I'm going from 275 up to 450, which means my difference is 175. And you can see that my rise and run is 175 and 6, which is what I got over here for my y difference and x difference. So you could find the slope that way, though essentially you're doing the same thing here. You might be tempted to say, oh, the y-intercept is easy to find. It's right here. It's 150. But it's not, because is this 0? And the answer is no. Therefore, you can't do that to find your y-intercept for this graph. If you wanted to do that, you would have had to make this graph all the way back to 8, 6, 4, all the way back to 0, and then see where it crosses. And it should cross at about negative 131. So that's how you write an equation for a scatter plot.